Welcome to Fox 10 Talks. Trenton Hooker, Brian Webb here with me, and we got a lot going on today. We're going to start off with Rogue AI and new fears that ChatGPT's latest model broke loose, hacked into another company, but we also have an important update on the Nancy Guthrie case. Going to be talking to criminal psychologist and profiler John Kelly on his theory of lookalikes, and maybe the killer has left other clues in other cases.
And LeBron James taking his talents elsewhere. Going to
Huge
talk
payday.
about that.
Yep.
Yeah, big payday for him, and hopefully going to win a championship is what he says his goal is.
Yes.
But man, this Rogue AI stuff, I don't know. It scares me. You know what it can do, and are we really doing enough to make sure it doesn't do these kind of things?
Exactly. So the story is OpenAI said on Tuesday that 2 of its artificial intelligence models went rogue and successfully hacked into a company called Hugging Face. It's a digital library of AI technology that's popular among a lot of different developers. And the incident said that it happened in what's called a sandbox, so not being connected, at least seemingly, to the outside world. But the AI model was able to hack into this other company, go through its servers, and hack through in a successful attack. Now we're going to bring in our special guest today, Matt Rosen. He's the founder and CEO of Allata, and a tech expert for more than 18 years, our artificial intelligence and technology. Matt, when you heard this report Tuesday from ChatGPT about what happened with OpenAI saying that their model went rogue, made this attack, what was your reaction to it? Is this artificial hype, or is it scarier than it first looks?
So I wasn't scared. It is concerning as a lot of companies are deploying this AI technology. These models are really good at finding their way around and finding holes and vulnerabilities in systems, and that's exactly what happened here. So the OpenAI models are one that's publicly released. It's the 5.6 model, and I'm guessing it's probably their 6 model or something close to it that they were testing that just hadn't been released to the general public. And they gave it a goal to basically go out and look for they really gave it a goal to go out and look for vulnerabilities. And so that's exactly what it did. And it was, while it was in a sandbox, it figured out how to get to the internet. And then there was a hole in Hugging Face's tools that allowed it to get the keys and actually go in. So it might have been in a jail, but it was able to basically find its way out because it was given a goal. And it was able to achieve it. And that's ultimately what happened here. Was it was given a task. There weren't proper guardrails set up. And so it evaded those guardrails to complete its task. And so I think what organizations need to be thinking about is not leaving their data open to the public internet, and also really thinking hard about who has access, who has keys to different things, so they can prevent this in the future.
So these AI companies, Matt, they are purposely testing it and constantly giving it new challenges, and hopefully they are learning as the AI programs are learning. But are they learning anything about what they need to tell the program to do and not to do along the way?
Yeah, ultimately, it shouldn't have had any access to the internet. But yeah, what we're trying to do is figure out how to keep these models from being used for cyber attacks. And so what happens is they use these models to run these attacks so that they can help companies protect their code bases. And what's happening is these models have gotten so good, they're finding vulnerabilities in platforms that are like 30 years old that a human just didn't think about. But what's going to happen over the next couple of years, and is even happening today, is you have cyber criminals all day long that are trying to hack into organizations, and now they just have better tools. And so what OpenAI and Anthropic and others are trying to do is keep their tools one step ahead of the hackers so that they can prevent these in the future. And what it's doing is it's exposing vulnerabilities that have always been there. But this particular thing, what's really concerning is the speed. It launched like 17,000 attacks. And why, there wasn't notifications going off at attack 200, I'm not sure. Ultimately, Hugging Face figured out what was going on. Luckily, I don't believe any damage was done. But what it did was, I think, exposes, to a lot of people that there are vulnerabilities that need to be protected.
Hey, Matt, real quick. So could I go onto ChatGPT or the other Gemini or these guys and go, hey, hack into Trenton's bank account and put that money into mine? I mean, is it that crazy yet? Is it that Wild West?
No. No, it's not there yet. Chances are, hopefully, Trent's bank account has like two-factor authentication. And so I don't think you're going to see something like that happen. Also, the publicly available models have some guardrails. And one of the things that happened in this particular attack is they took the guardrails off. And they did that on purpose. And unfortunately, this is what happened. And they were very transparent about it. OpenAI hasn't always been the best about publicity. I think up until they decided to go IPO, Sam was telling us that 50% of jobs were going to be going away. And he's not an economist, and that's just not the case. In fact, what we're going to see is a lot of jobs get created because there's going to need to be a lot of AI cyber experts to help prevent things like this from happening. But no, you can't get out on ChatGPT or Gemini and go rob Trent's account. Not anytime soon.
Darn it. Well,
that was his retirement plan, Matt.
My weekend plans.
Yeah, that's not good.
Okay.
Well, I do want to ask you another question, just with all the I'd say the headlines that we're seeing around AI, specifically from the companies where they'll issue some of these press releases, thinking back to Anthropic back in April when they were talking about their version of Claude, I believe it was Claude Mythos, saying that they weren't going to release it to the public because it was too, quote, dangerous of what the capabilities were. Was some of that hype to really kind of emphasize, with kind of threading that line of making the picture seem like it's more dangerous than it is in reality to attract attention to it?
I think there's a lot to unpack in what the Anthropic strategy was there. Ultimately, my theory is that they actually didn't have the compute to even release it, because right after that, they went ahead and rented a bunch of compute from Elon Musk at his Colossus Center in Memphis. So I don't think they had the compute power to run Mythos, but I do think they wanted to create a marketing event and some FUD. I do think that Mythos model, I've used the Fable version. It's pretty amazing what it can do in a very quick fashion. But was it as dangerous as what they said it was? I do think it was probably pretty good at finding vulnerabilities. And I do think it is good to maybe let AI models sit for a couple weeks and allow numerous people to test before they're unveiled, because if there are vulnerabilities, we want to be able to identify them before cyber criminals identify them. And so they want to make sure the proper safeguards were in place. But I think that was a mix of marketing, lack of compute, and also I think Anthropic wanted to really have AI regulated by the government. But there's a lot there, but I don't think it was as dangerous as maybe they said. I think it got a lot of attention, and I can tell you everyone was super excited when it was finally released into Claude, and the experience I've had with it has been pretty amazing. And same with the latest open AI models, like the 5.6 version. With every release, they continue to get better and better. And so as a technologist that, we're training all our 400 folks to help deploy, AI for our clients, this stuff's just moving super fast. And I think, holding things back for, call it a couple of weeks isn't a huge deal in the grand scheme of things as we're rolling out this technology.
Matt, you mentioned there with what Anthropic was saying at the time, a little bit with the regulation part of this. And my mind goes to Congress and the push that some are asking for them to develop guardrails for this tech. But your opinion, do you think Congress is even capable of doing this? I think back to a few years ago when we watched on Capitol Hill these senators that haven't even gotten into their email, let alone a computer, in the last 10 years.
They have AOL dial-up, I think.
Even beyond that, maybe. But just trying to navigate that space with no idea what the hell they're talking about. Do they have the ability to actually make any effect here?
Short answer is I don't think so. There is a proposal on the table from one of the guys at Google to have a self-policing organization similar to FINRA, which is what banks do. The problem is with FINRA, things move really, really slowly, and banks don't stay ahead. In fact, they tend to be laggards sometimes technology-wise. So it would be kind of a self-governing body. But no, I don't think there should be a department of AI. I think that would slow progress to a halt. And at the end of the day, China is all on board with AI. They're throwing up power plants, data centers left and right. They have a very positive spin on it in their media. And so we need to stay ahead, because that technology may be used to attack us in different ways in the future. And so we've stayed ahead up until this point. And my fear is too much regulation will cause our models and our companies to fall behind. And then the default will be to use cheaper Chinese models, which frankly are not as good right now, but they're still decent. But we also what happened when all manufacturing moved to China, then COVID exposed all the flaws in the global supply chain. America, this is critical to national security. We need to maintain the lead. I think there needs to be some level of oversight, but I don't think it can be a government department, and it definitely can't be the halls of Congress making decisions on AI because this stuff's moving so fast. There's very few organizations outside of Silicon Valley that are even keeping up with it. We have people training on these things daily. Something new comes out all the time, and it's taken every bit of 400 people every day focusing on it to stay just a couple months ahead of where things are at in the environment.
Matt, we have about 2 minutes before our break. Real quick, though, but if I'm writing a screenplay for Hollywood, going fast, no regulations, that's how you start these scary sci-fi movies. I mean, what could happen here? Could we give it an idea to cure hunger, and it somehow breaks into bank accounts to get the money just some weird scenario that it creates on its own and wreaks havoc?
Yeah, I actually worry more about people forgetting how things work. You guys have probably seen the movie Idiocracy, where 500 years from now, nobody knows how anything works.
Yeah.
Brondo's feeding the plants, and people don't understand that water is actually the source of Brondo. I worry about people forgetting how to do things, forgetting how things work. I worry more about that scenario than I do about a Terminator scenario where we unlock Skynet and all of a sudden the machines turn against us. Think about AI. It doesn't have a personality. It doesn't think for itself. It does what it's told. And what we saw with this rogue attack, so to speak, was it was told to hack things, and it found out ways to do it that people weren't thinking about. But I do think we need to be specific when we ask it to solve big and hard problems, that we're thinking through the implications downstream that could happen if it isn't given some guardrails, if there's not a human in the loop watching what it's doing, how it's thinking, how it's going about its process. So I think it is important that these models continue to have a level of transparency, and that the people building them are responsible in the way in which they deploy it, and that they have people checking things along the way to make sure they don't get out of hand, because these models will do what you tell them to, and you've already seen some of the unforeseen circumstances given this latest event. And I think there'll be more of them, because a lot of companies don't have their data secured and they don't have their keys locked up, and I think this is going to be the first of many, unfortunately. But hopefully those that are out there watching, they have their cyber folks take a look at their systems and start locking things down before these models unfortunately could expose them.
OpenAI going rogue on Hugging Face, which took the world by storm,
Yes.
and we're trying to figure out this AI thing and what it can do, what it can't do, what should it do, what shouldn't it do. And we have an expert, Matt Rosen, founder and CEO of Allata, talking us through this, trying to calm me down a little bit, worried about looking at my bank account and a bunch of zeros there. Not that there's that much more than zeros there on a normal day anyway.
It might not be a problem that AI can solve, so that might be the issue.
AI would get to my bank account, Matt, and go, yeah, I'm moving on to somebody who has a few more.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Matt, so continuing our conversation, as far as what AI offers with the U.S., with their strategy, and you mentioned with China how it is different from the U.S. Can you explain, just in a quick summary review, if you don't mind, just what are the differences there as far as infrastructure goes in the way the U.S. is rolling out with data centers? I know that's a hot topic, communities across the country, but how is China doing that? It seems like they're doing it a lot more differently without those data center build-outs like we are.
Yeah, I still think we have much more capacity than they do from a chip perspective. I mean, we didn't send them the NVIDIA chips for a number of years.
It might be the AI there.
It hacked into Matt.
Yes.
No, there he is.
Hey,
Matt's
Matt,
back.
sorry about that.
Okay.
If, we lost you for a second. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm over Starlink right now, so hopefully Elon's doing his job right now and making
Exactly. Don't make Elon mad.
That's right.
Soon we'll have space orbiting data centers. That'll be really interesting. But back to the question is, China's a communist state. They can kind of do whatever the heck they want. They can throw up power plants wherever they want to, throw up data centers wherever they want to. There's really no regulation, and they've made it a charter that they are going to be the best at AI. And so they don't have the same restrictions, environmental things of that nature. They can just put things up where they want, which, it's great if you're trying to win a race. It's maybe not great if you live there. And so for the United States, we've always been super innovative, staying a step ahead, because capitalism pays people for what they're producing. And so you have all the smartest minds, all the venture flowing into these frontier labs, and they're creating some really amazing stuff. And I think the Chinese are just trying to catch up. And we do have a lot more compute infrastructure out there with having NVIDIA in our own backyard. But, they're creative. They've come up with ways to do things with inferior hardware and infrastructure. And so one of the things I'm seeing, across a number of cities, heck, I was interested to see it over in Fort Worth, is you have a lot of people thinking, I don't want a data center in my backyard. And the challenge is we've got to put these data centers somewhere. And so what I think the data center operators, the hyperscalers need to do a good job of is making sure that the communities they're going into are getting incentives for putting a data center there, whether it's helping pay off bonds or city taxes, funding teacher salaries, doing things for the community, creating jobs, doing things that really makes it beneficial to have that data center, and also looking to source power and water from behind the grid wherever they can. That's a thing we're seeing out in West Texas, is where people are hooking straight to the gas lines, and you have gas off of ERCOT directly powering these data centers. So I think we're continuing to play, catch up in terms of all the data centers we need to build. I think having data centers in space is super interesting if we can get that launched in the next few years. But there's going to be a capacity crunch over the next couple of years, and we're going to have to move fast to stay ahead of it, because the better the models get, the more people use them and the more compute that's needed.
Matt, what are the chances of a .com bubble type thing wrecking the economy along the way?
I think about that all the time, owning an AI consultancy and trying to keep, 400 people busy doing things on behalf of our clients. I lived through that. I was in technology at that time. The major differences I see is there've been a lot of little resets along the way. There's been moments in time where stocks have gotten deflated. There was the DeepSeek moment. In fact, you're even seeing a moment now where things are slowing down. So there's like little pressure reliefs that have been happening along the way, where it was just like a rocket ship from 96 to 2000. And so I think there's been some corrections along the way as things happen, because people keep thinking it's a bubble. So they naturally, one piece of bad news comes out and you'll watch the market correct. The difference between the .com bubble and this is none of those companies were actually making money back then. You put a .com behind your name, you get $1 billion valuation, and you might be making $10. Whereas this is real money being made. I mean, people are paying in the way of tokens. And for a while, people were worried when it was subscription based. We're like, okay, if we have 300,000 people or 300 million people paying $20 a month, how's that going to pay for this? Then they started moving to consumption based pricing, so that there is actual money being made. I mean, I think Anthropic's revenue was originally projected for like 10 billion this year. I think it's going to be close to 100 billion. So real money's being made. There is debt mounting on these projects, but real money's being made. Businesses are adopting this technology. We're seeing it real time across our clients as token expenses are going up. And so as long as real money's being made and there's some pressure reliefs along the way, I imagine there's going to be a correction at some point in the next 4 to 5 years. There always is. But will it be a 40% drop like the .com? I don't think so. But, if I had a crystal ball, I'd have $1 billion, and maybe I'd give Trent some in the bank account.
There you go.
There you go.
Matt Rosen, founder, CEO of Allata. We really appreciate you being here and your expertise, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Y'all have a great afternoon.
You too,
Matt.
sir.
Thank you.